You want a lesson in football? Let's bring in our friend Seth Joyner. Seth, I appreciate you doing this. Seth, am I right when I say that? I mean, you're asking a lot, Seth. If you think these guys are going to roll in here and be massively productive, how would you play Ndamukong Suh and Joseph?
Hell, I play them right away, man. I mean, I know there's a lot of conversation about, them just getting in and, not being in football shape because they haven't played all year. Listen, we're not asking them to run a 40-yard dash. We're basically asking them to come in and help plug the run, put them in a gap, help them plug up the gap, stop getting, guys pushed off the ball. They're not going to pull a hamstring. They're not going to get injured because, they're only going to be running 5 yards. We're not, if they got to run more than 10 yards, we got a problem anyway, a bigger problem. But, listen, desperate times call for desperate measures. Fletcher Cox is not getting it done. Jordan Davis ain't coming back anytime soon because he's injured. And, I guess for some reason or another, Javon Hargrave has turned into more of a pass rushing defensive tackle than necessarily, a run stopper. I mean, he came from Pittsburgh as a run stopper in that 30 front. But they don't seem to be able to, get low enough to thwart these double teams in the 4-man front. So, hey, listen, Howie's doing everything that he can to give Jonathon Gannon what he needs to be successful. And I think he's saying now, hey, look, the ball's in your court. You come up with the creativity to figure out a way, to get this run game under control.
Seth, do you agree with this statement that I've been telling this to people? And to me, when I watch Fletcher Cox and I watch Hargrave play sometimes in that 2-gap technique, to me it looks like they've never really bought in. And I'm going to tell you what I see sometimes with Gannon. I don't think Gannon's ever really trusted and bought into all of his players, especially in the front 7. He's a DB coach. There's no coincidence that they're getting great success in the secondary because that's his forte. But the front 7, I mean, Seth, the players, why would the players buy into Jonathon Gannon's system when he doesn't buy into them? Am I wrong when I say that?
Listen, I don't know, man. I mean, as players, you got to go out and you got to execute what's called. Could Jonathon Gannon do some things, better that would give, these defensive linemen, a little more latitude? I know Fletcher got into it, with Tracy Rocker, the D-line coach last year, playing that 2-gap and holding the guys off. And, after a while, I get it. You get tired of being pushed around by a double team all the time. Jonathon Gannon and Tracy Rocker can do some different things by moving these guys around. I was just talking about it with somebody today. Just because you line up in a 3 technique doesn't mean you always have to play the B gap. Okay. You can fake the B and shoot him down in the A gap and have him and the linebacker swap responsibility. It screws up the entire blocking scheme. Now he's got the A gap. The linebacker's, wrong right shoulder, into the right shoulder free into the B gap. You gotta get creative. You can't just. The biggest problem I see with Jonathon Gannon is that he lines up, guys in a stale, stagnant position all the time. Whether you're talking about the front, even when you're talking about, the defensive backs. Like I saw last week they lined up, in cover 4. So they lined up in quarters coverage across the board. The safeties and the corners are lined up all at 10 yards on 3rd and 6. You think that that's not an open invitation to the quarterback to just raise up and throw the out route at 7 yards for automatic first down? And sometimes you got to get, at some point in time, you got to get creative. Get your corners up and let them bail. So at least the cornerback is thinking maybe they're in cover 2, maybe they're in 2-man, maybe they're rotating one side or the other. Make the quarterback earn his money. But when you just line up stale and stagnant all the time and the defense quarterback gets a pre-snap read and knows where you are and what you're doing all the time, you put the players in a precarious position. And it's no different from the defensive line standpoint. If you're not getting the production that you need, then you need to come up with something creatively, to get these guys, put them in a gap, let them shoot a gap, run some run blitzes that allows, the linebackers to get in the backfield, allows you to get some penetration that takes away the cutback lane and forces the run to go, just to one side. But, in a lot of ways, I just don't see the creativity there. When The defensive coordinator's got an 8x10 folded in half, and he's looking at one side the entire game. And the offensive coordinator over on the other side's got a billboard in front of him with multiple pages. You're going to tell me that he has enough information on that sheet of paper?
You're muted. You're muted, Seth. Seth, you're muted. There we go. Seth, you there? Can you hear me, Seth? Seth, can you hear me?
I don't know what happened. I can't hear you.
Seth, can you hear me? Let's see if we can reconnect here a little bit here and see if we can, because I got a question about him seeing the same team again and getting an opportunity like what happened with Washington. Because, again, to me, I think a blueprint has now been printed out here, okay, for other teams to sit there and try to follow here. So when you watch what Washington did, to me, let's see if we can reconnect here with Seth. Seth, can you hear me, brother?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Somebody. Go ahead.
Go ahead. You're good.
All right, here, Seth, tell me if this is what you saw in that Washington game. For me, as a defensive guy, and I watched Jack Del Rio and Ron Rivera, and I watched what those guys did. Every single thing they did in that first game that was wrong, they corrected. And to me, Seth, you know this as well as anybody. When you get a second look at a team and you know what they're going to do and you can prepare, that coaching staff in Washington, in my opinion, is very experienced and very talented with those two guys. Do you think there's something to that, Seth? The second time through, they kind of saw what to do because there weren't really great numbers. I mean, Heineke had 211, a pick. I mean, what's his name? McLaren was great, 128. The running back had 86 yards. They won first and second down, though, Seth. I mean, do you think there's anything to that?
Well, and listen, there's no doubt about it that, the players got outplayed. The Eagles made far too many mistakes, and the coaches got outcoached. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I think that on the offensive side, Shane Steichen and Nick Sirianni thought that they could come in with the same game plan of throwing the ball because they couldn't run it effectively in the first game, and they gave up on it instead of trying to impose their will and running straight at them. They gave up on it, and they put Jalen in a situation where it was tough for him to succeed because he threw the ball so much. They only ran the ball. Miles Sanders had like one carry or two carries in the first half. That's unconscionable. You can't ask the quarterback to play under those circumstances. And I think on the interception that Jalen had, he got greedy. He got away with it against Pittsburgh when he threw that same route and Minkah Fitzpatrick overplayed it and A.J. Brown went up and made a play. This time he got greedy and it bit it. So, where was the run game to balance things out? Then they turn around. I think there was only like 4 possessions in the first half. So they had 1 turnover. They went 3 and out twice. And then they had the long, 12-play drive, for the touchdown. Right there in the first quarter. That's what the first quarter looked like. Then over on the defensive side of the ball, you had to have known that, that Ron Rivera and was going to look at what happened in Texas in the Thursday night game and realize that, hey, without Jordan Davis, we can run the ball at this team. We got, a big back in James Robinson. We got a complimentary back in Antonio Gibson. And, we're just going to run the ball at him, and we're going to run it enough, to when we need to throw the ball, we can go play action pass and get what we want out of the passing game. That's exactly what they did. And because they had no answer for the running game, and then you throw into the mix, the 4 turnovers, that's the greatest recipe for a loss. Coaches used to tell me, hey, you turn the ball over 3 times or more, you don't really deserve to win. But you throw into the mix that defensively you can't stop the run. They're going to play action pass and only throw the ball when they have to. And then you turn the ball over, you're not getting any production out of special teams. Great recipe, for losing a football game, and that's exactly what happened.
Seth, do you think this is an issue for the offense? The last month, Devontae Smith has 18 catches for 120 yards. I mean, you know, I know it's been a lot of Goddard. I know it's been a lot of AJ, but I mean, spreading that around a little bit. I mean, you got a weapon over there that you're not utilizing him, and I'm assuming that they'll probably try to get him more involved now that Goddard's now, because you got to make up for that offense. Do you expect his production to go up because of the lack of playing time now for these next 4 weeks here for Goddard?
Well, Dan, I'll tell you this. I think that, I think the offensive staff has done a fantastic job of identifying where the matchup inequalities are and taking advantage of it. And, Devontae, caught 0 balls game 1, and he comes back, with like 8, 9 balls game 2, and a touchdown or 2 touchdowns. It always balances out. I wondered out loud, hey, is there enough balls to go around for everybody? You got, to me, an elite level tight end is now out. You got a number 1. You got 2 number 1s at wide receiver, and, they don't even use Quez Watkins. I mean, he got some usage last week. But it's like you're trying to figure out who do you give the ball to. And I think a lot of it is dictated by coverage. I think a lot of it is dictated by matchups. And I think that this team, this offensive staff, they game plan off of matchups. Now, if the objective is to win, then you win however you can win. And if that's the game plan and that's the way you're going to go about it, I think you're better off having multiple weapons and having teams having to prepare for multiple weapons than to be one-dimensional. One of the reasons why I felt the Eagles back in 2017-18 would win the Super Bowl against the New England Patriots is because what does Bill Belichick do? He takes away your best weapon and forces you to win with your least weapons. Well, hell, the Eagles had 5 weapons across the board, so he couldn't take anything away. Consequently, they scored 41 points almost every single possession. Well, that's the same position that the Eagles can be in if they see their passing game through the run. Then they can make it easier on Jalen Hurts to be able to throw the ball down the field. And if you got you got plenty of options. Defensive coordinators got a game plan for all of them. So I think it's a benefit, even though they're not getting the production. He might not be having the type of year that he wanted to have. But listen, Howie Roseman didn't trade away a first-round draft pick and then turn around and give A.J. Brown $25 million a year for this guy, to be an afterthought in the offense. They think that they have a big body and a major mismatch, with him. So they're going to give him the ball. And, everybody else is going to, for lack of a better word, play second fiddle. When they decided they want to take him away, they're going to double him. Then that opens up the field for everybody else. If they would want to double, Dallas Goedert when he's, healthy, that opens up the field for everybody else. If they can get one-on-ones against, Quez Watkins or Devontae Smith, their other number 1 wide receiver, in my opinion, I think that they have 2 number 1s. But if they can get one-on-ones, then, hey, that's where you take advantage. But, their game plan is going to be their game plan. I don't think they're going to deviate from it. And I'm kind of impressed with what they've been doing all year long. They just, they couldn't get out of their way on Monday night.
2 last questions for you here. Seth, are you concerned about Jonathon Taylor and that offense? I mean, look, anybody can jump up and get you. We saw what Washington did. Hell, the Colts ended up beating the Chiefs. And see, to me, Seth, I said this. We're going to find out, I think, really early in this game if this is going to be a close game. I said by the end of the first quarter, you're going to get a heavy dose of Jonathon Taylor. And if they're moving the ball, I think we're going to get a sense then that what this game is going to look like, and it could be a long day. Do you agree? Look, the Colts can't hang with the roster, but I think they have some components that could make you concerned.
Hey, listen, everybody has seen the blueprint. You've seen it work successfully 1 week, and you've seen a team come up short in the first week. But the blueprint is that, now that Jordan Davis is out, the Eagles, they were good in every other aspect except for the run game. And now without, and I'm not saying that they weren't good, a good, run defense. They were average. Now, without Jordan Davis in the lineup, they become below average. So that's going to be, the method of attack for every team that they play from here on out. You got to consider who they play. Okay. They got Jonathon Taylor, the reigning AFC Offensive Player of the Year and rushing champion from last year. Okay. Then you get Green Bay coming in with Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, okay? And they've made the move to running the ball because, you know, Aaron's having an off year. Then you turn around, you get Derrick Henry rolls into Philly, you know, and you know what they're going to do. You know what their MO is. You got the Giants twice with Saquon's 100%, and they're running him like crazy. They're not necessarily putting the game on what's the Giants quarterback?
Daniel Jones.
Daniel Jones. They're not putting the game on his arm. They're running the ball, then play action pass, and that's why they're having success.
Even the Bears.
Yeah, you got the combination of Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott, you know, on Christmas Eve. You got, you know, even though the Bears aren't, you know, beating anybody, you still got Montgomery when healthy. He's a viable, you know, run option. And then you got Justin Fields is just like running all over the NFL. I mean, the Bears have averaged 32 points over the last 2 games, you know, and then nobody's talking about, you know, Alvin Kamara. You know, they got him, I think, in week 17, and he's still, you know, so everybody that they've got left on their schedule are teams that can effectively run the ball. They've seen what the blueprint is, and that's what they're going to do. They're going to run the ball in order to set up the pass. And if the Eagles don't get it under control, it's going to be an ugly second half of the season, man.
Finally here, help me out. Why isn't Nakobe Dean getting any playing time?
Listen, to be honest with you, I'm not close enough to the team to really know why he's not playing. The only reason I can think of that he's not playing is either A, you know, he's having a hard time picking up the defense. You know, B, in practice, he's not getting it done. He hasn't shown the coaching staff that he's ready. Or C, you know, he's too small.
It's week 11. I mean,
hey, listen.
No, I get it. I get it. Some guys come along slower. I mean, I'm not there either saying anything negative on the kid. I'm just saying for the steal of the draft, not to see barely any reps when it comes to outside of special teams, you know, I mean, where are we here with this? Because everyone else is contributing.
We haven't even really seen a whole lot out of them on special teams, okay?
Right.
And the problem is when a guy falls precipitously the way he fell, maybe there was more to it than meets the eye, okay? Maybe, you know, the Eagles thought they got a steal, but maybe, you know, once you put him in the pro game, he's not the same linebacker, you know, under the same, because listen, they protected him a lot, you know, with those big tackles in front of him, you know, he was like Ray Lewis, just run to the ball and knock the snot out of people. You know, you very rarely got touched. You didn't have to take on blocks. Well, this defense is different, you know. It works when you're in a 5-man front, because if you're a 5-man and you got 2 linebackers on the field, you're pretty much a 7-man front. One of those linebackers is going to be a free hitter. Everybody else, you know, because Jordan Davis is going to eat up too. Well, you can get away with it under those circumstances. But when you play the 4-man line, it's straight man on man. And the biggest problem they're having is that the linebackers don't know. They seem like they don't know where they fit. You get the double team on the 1 or the 2. You get the double team on the 3. And those guys are looking in the backfield trying to figure out where the ball is. By the time they figure out where the ball is, you got 600 yards pushing on 300 yards in 2 different positions in front of them. And by the time they go to react, you know, they've already gained, you know, 4 or 5 yards, you know. So, you know, that's their problem. Their problem is, you know, those guys got to realize the minute you see the double team, you got to come downhill right now and take that double team off so that tackle can get in his gap and you can fit in your gap with the outside arm or the inside arm free, whatever technique you're playing.
So, Seth, you're saying the fits aren't there.
No. No,
okay.
And this is what you're seeing right now is the same problem they had in the run game last year.
Yeah,
that's why they moved up to 13th to go get Jordan Davis.
Okay,
you know, because he takes some of that away. But right now, you're watching these linebackers like T.J. Edwards and Kazir White have played terrible the last 2 weeks.
Yeah,
terrible. Yeah, they got a lot of tackles, but they're tackling 5, 6, 7 yards down the field. That's not going to win you football games, and a lot of that is just fits. You know, and if the fits aren't happening, then you have to implement some run blitzes on 1st and 2nd down. I hope he's gotten up on his chalkboard, Jonathon Gannon, and drawn some of those up, or called, you know, Vic Fangio to, you know, send him some ideas about what to do. But you can't sit back, in your basic 4-2 and think that you're going to stop the run all day long. It hasn't worked the last 2 weeks, and you're facing 6 or 7 teams down the stretch that can do exactly what the last 2 teams have done to you, but do it to you more efficiently. So you better have an answer, or it's going to be a tough road to hold down the stretch for this Eagles team.
Seth, I can't wait to see you on the pre- and post-game show on Sunday. Should be a very interesting Colts-Eagles game. Brother, thank you so much for finding time for me, man. You always do. Thank you very much.
You got it, my man. You got me. I'm at the gym, so I got to go. I had to jump on with you. I'm going to go finish up, get me a steam and a sauna, and call it a day, man.
Thank you so much, Seth. I appreciate it.
You got
brother.
it.
Thank you, man. I love Seth Joyner. All right. Do me a favor. Hit the like button. Keep it here on the National Football Show.